It was a quiet Sunday night at home in Los Angeles. The Dogg family had gathered for dinner, a rare moment of calm in a world that often moved too fast. Snoop, still wearing his slippers and a Lakers hoodie, passed a bowl of greens to his daughter, Corey Broaddus. As they laughed and swapped stories, Corey looked at her father and asked a question that pierced the air. "Daddy," she said softly, "what's the hardest memory you've ever had to live through?" The table fell silent. Even the sound of silverware paused. Snoop looked at her, taken off guard. He wasn't used to his kids asking deep, personal questions. They knew the music, the success, the humor, but not always the pain. He cleared his throat and said, "That's a good question, baby girl. Let me think on that." The conversation shifted briefly to lighter topics, but Snoop couldn't shake the weight of her question. Later that night, he sat alone on the back porch, blunt in hand, staring at the moon. He whispered to himself, "Damn, what was the hardest?" It wasn't the fights, or the fame, or the money issues. It was something else, something quieter. The memory came to him like smoke rising. His cousin Junebug, gunned down when they were teenagers. The pain of not being able to save him. The guilt. The silence. He hadn't spoken about Junebug in years. The music touched on it, sure, but only in metaphors. He never told the full story. Never let the world know how that moment shaped the way he moved, the way he rapped, the way he survived. He went back inside, kissed Corey on the forehead and said, "Tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow, baby." She smiled and hugged him tight. "I'll be waiting." That night, he barely slept. Memories came back in waves, streets, blood, sirens, and loss. He decided then and there that he wouldn't just tell her. He'd tell the world. Not for fame, but for healing. And so began a journey he never expected to take. Backward. The next morning, Snoop sat with Corey in the studio lounge. He pressed record on his phone and said, "This is for you, baby. But if it helps others too, then that's God." Corey nodded, holding his hand. Snoop began slowly. His name was Junebug. Real name was James, but no one called him that. He was my blood cousin. Same block, same fights, same dreams. His voice cracked a bit. We wanted to be rappers together before rap was even an option. He described Junebug as wild but loyal, a kid who'd laugh during the worst moments, just to keep spirits up. "Man had this big-ass grin like he knew something you didn't," Snoop said. He was sunshine even in dark corners. But one night, Junebug got into the wrong car with the wrong crew. Snoop warned him. I told him, "Bug, don't roll with them cats tonight." But he was stubborn. Said he'd be back by midnight. He never came back. Snoop recalled hearing the news through a phone call at 3 a.m. I felt my soul drop out my body. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't talk. Just fell to the floor. He paused. I didn't even cry at first. Just numb. He went to the scene the next day. The blood, on the sidewalk, the yellow tape, the crowd, and the silence. "That's when I knew life don't wait on nobody," he said. "That's when I learned how fast love can disappear." Corey had tears in her eyes. "Why haven't you ever told us this?" she asked. Snoop sighed. "Because talking about it made it real again, and I didn't want to feel that pain no more, but maybe it's time." He ended the recording and said, "This story don't stop here. I'm gonna share it. For Junebug. For me. For every kid walking those same streets today." What started as a dinner question had now become a mission. That week, Snoop posted the audio clip from the studio to his social media accounts. No beat, no effects, just his raw voice telling the story of Junebug. The caption read, "She asked me something deep. I gave her the truth." Within hours, the clip had millions of views. Celebrities, fans, and even people who had never followed Snoop shared the post. The pain in his voice, the honesty in his words, it hit differently. "You never know the weight someone carries," one user commented. Talk shows picked it up. News outlets wrote think pieces, and young men from Long Beach to Baltimore said, "That story? That's my life too." It wasn't just a confession. It was a mirror. Snoop was invited onto a podcast hosted by a youth group in Compton. Ain't nobody ever told us it was okay to hurt, one teen said. Thank you for showing us strength ain't silence. Snoop wiped his eyes. Y'all showing me the same thing. He started getting letters. From mothers who lost sons. From young men who were scared to leave their block. From teachers using his clip in class to talk about grief. Junebug's story is saving lives, one wrote. Corey watched it all unfold. You're changing people, Dad, she said. Snoop smiled. Nah, you did. You asked the question. Inspired, he worked with a non-profit to launch the Junebug Project, offering counseling and music workshops for youth affected by gun violence. The logo? A pair of headphones wrapped in angel wings. Every week Snoop would stop by the community center, not as Snoop Dogg, but as Uncle Calvin. This ain't about me, he told them. This about you finding your voice before someone takes it away. And slowly, Junebug's name stopped being just a memory. It became a movement. The more Snoop shared, the more others opened up. Across the country, barbershops, schools, and living rooms buzzed with one question. What's your Junebug story? People who had kept trauma bottled up for years began to talk, to write, to cry, and to heal. Snoop organized a live stream called Junebug's Circle, where guests from all walks of life shared their hardest memory. A retired Marine, a mother who lost 2 sons, a rapper who broke down mid-sentence. This ain't therapy, Snoop said, but it's healing just the same. Corey co-hosted. It started with a dinner table, she reminded viewers. You'd be surprised what one question can do. Her poise, her empathy, audiences fell in love with her. They called her the next generation of emotional leadership in hip-hop. That night, the stream peaked at over 5 million viewers. Twitter lit up. Why did a rapper just teach me more about grief than any preacher? One tweet read. The moment wasn't just viral, it was human. Artists followed suit. J. Cole released a freestyle titled, For My Ghosts. Lizzo talked about her cousin's suicide. Even Drake dropped a line in his verse. Lost my Junebug, I still hear him in my hooks. The ripple was everywhere. Snoop realized he had unintentionally created space for something bigger than himself. And he leaned in. He met with psychologists, educators, and prison reform activists to turn Junebug's Circle into a permanent digital platform. The site offered tools for youth to express themselves. Beat packs, writing prompts, video confessions, even meditation guides. Express or suppress, Snoop said. We choosing expression now. A school in Long Beach painted a mural of Junebug based on Snoop's childhood memories. It showed a young boy with headphones, a notebook, and a smile that couldn't be erased, even by tragedy. When Snoop visited the mural, he broke down. I spent so long trying to forget, he whispered. But remembering him this way? It feels right. And in remembering, the whole community began to repair. Back in the studio, Snoop decided to channel his grief into sound. He crafted a concept album titled Echoes of Junebug. It wasn't a typical Snoop record. It was stripped, vulnerable, spiritual. He didn't feature big names. Instead, he brought in unheard voices, poets from detention centers, singers from local churches, young producers from the Junebug Project. This one's for the people who don't get heard, he said. Each track tackled a chapter of loss, anger, denial, regret, nostalgia, and finally, peace. In one track, Porchlight, Snoop recites a letter he never got to send Junebug. You told me to run when they came. I ran. But I wish I'd stayed. Critics called it his most artistic work to date. Fans called it his most important. This ain't a record you dance to, one fan tweeted. It's a record you grow through. Corey added background vocals to 2 tracks. Her voice, a soft echo behind her father's gravel, created a haunting contrast. On Dishes in the Sink, she sings, We left the light on. You never came home. Millions wept. Streaming numbers soared, but Snoop refused to monetize it. Every dollar goes to Junebug's Circle and trauma support programs, he stated. This music came from pain. It should go toward healing. The album cover featured an old photograph of Junebug, slightly blurred, smiling wide. That grin still follows me, Snoop said, in every city, every show. During interviews, he told audiences, we all got ghosts, but we don't have to be haunted forever. We can talk to them, walk with them, even dance with them sometimes. And for once, The industry that glorified pain was now being used to process it. As echoes of Junebug gained momentum, Snoop was invited to speak at a fatherhood summit in Atlanta. He hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was the right person, but Corey insisted. "You're the only one who can say it the way they'll hear it." He took the stage in front of 2,000 black fathers, barbers, coaches, ex-convicts, CEOs, and students. "We don't talk enough," he began. "And when we don't talk, the silence grows into monsters we can't face." He shared how he almost lost his relationship with Corey years earlier because of emotional distance. "I was so busy being Snoop, I forgot how to be dad." The crowd nodded. Some men wiped away tears. He talked about the guilt of surviving, about how Junebug never got to see 20, while he got to see the world. "Sometimes I ask why me, but now I ask, for what purpose?" Men approached him after with open arms. "My son don't know my pain," one said, "but maybe tonight, he will." The summit created support circles in 5 cities within a month. Snoop realized something profound. His daughter's question didn't just open his heart. It opened a path for countless other fathers to speak, to reconnect, to heal. "Our kids ain't asking for perfection," he said. "They asking for presence." He and Corey started hosting monthly Zoom calls with fathers and daughters. Not therapy, just space. Sometimes 10 people joined, sometimes 1,000. But every time, someone cried. Someone healed. Corey's following grew. She wasn't trying to be famous. She was trying to help. "I just want people to love better. That's all," she said in an interview. "And Snoop?" He looked at her and said, "You're doing what I never could at your age. You're changing the world one question at a time." The world wanted more. Not because of hype, but because of heart. So a documentary crew followed Snoop and Corey for 6 months, capturing their journey from that dinner table to a national movement. The result was Dear Junebug, a deeply personal film that interwove Snoop's grief, Corey's curiosity, and the voices of those they touched along the way. It wasn't flashy. It was real. Scenes included late-night conversations, studio sessions, hospital visits, and candid breakdowns. In one clip, Snoop says to the camera, "If my tears help someone else cry the one they've been holding in, then let 'em fall." The Five documentary premiered at Sundance and received a standing ovation. Not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. Critics called it a masterclass in vulnerability from a man the world thought was untouchable. Snoop didn't walk the red carpet. He walked in with Corey holding her hand. "This her story too," he told reporters. "I just happened to be the lesson." The film was picked up by Netflix and translated into 12 languages. Viewers from Brazil to South Korea posted videos sharing their own toughest memory. The comment sections became confession booths and sanctuaries. High schools assigned the film in English classes. Universities dissected it in psychology courses. And most importantly, families started talking. Around tables, on balconies, in cars, wherever silence once lived. Dear Junebug was more than a film. It was a key. And Snoop had given it to the world. 1 year after that dinner, Snoop sat alone in the same seat. Corey walked in and placed a notebook in front of him. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled. "Your turn to write. A letter. To Junebug." He hesitated, then opened it and began to write. Tears blurred his vision as he penned line after line. "I miss you. I'm sorry. I made it out, but I never forgot. And guess what? The world knows your name now." The letter went viral when he read it aloud on a live stream. Viewers said they hadn't cried that hard in years. It felt like he was writing, "To all of our Junebugs," one fan posted. That letter was for the ones we lost and the pieces of ourselves that went with them. He ended it with, "Thank you for being my first mirror. I'm finally looking at myself fully now." The final page was blank. Snoop said it was for others to fill in with their own names. Corey read her own letter to her father at a charity gala that night. "Thank you for answering my question," she said. "You didn't just tell me your truth. You showed the world how to live with it." They hugged on stage. The audience rose in applause. Not for fame. Not for flash. but for family. Later that night, Snoop looked at the sky and said, "We did it, Bug. Your story's in every house now, and somewhere in the wind." He swore he heard that old familiar laugh. Months later, things had changed. But not in the flashy headline way, in the human way. There was more listening, more checking in, more space for people to say, "I'm hurting," without shame. The Junebug Project expanded globally. Writing circles in Ghana, beat workshops in Oakland, grief support groups in Tokyo. Snoop was no longer the face, it was the voices that mattered now. Corey launched a podcast called Ask the Question, where guests shared the one question that changed their life. Her first episode? That dinner, with her dad. Listeners said it helped them reconnect with their families. Snoop kept making music, but it was different now. Less about the party, more about the purpose. "Ain't nothing wrong with fun," he said. "But if I'm blessed with a mic, I better say something that echoes." His new motto? Live loud. Love louder. It appeared on shirts, murals, notebooks, and even tattoos. But most importantly, it lived in people's hearts. At the next Thanksgiving, Corey sat beside him again. She smiled and said, "Got another question." Snoop laughed. "Girl, you dangerous with them questions." She leaned in. "What moment made you proudest?" He looked around at the family, at the photos on the wall, at the community they'd built. He took a deep breath and said, "This one, right now, you, me, talking." And just like that, a new conversation began.